Okay, what changes should the NRL make for Las Vegas in 2026? There's been a lot of ideas posted online by various podcasters, YouTubers, and journalists. Andrew Voss has been very clear that he wants Super League involvement. He was very humbled to be allowed to commentate the Wigan Warrington game, and the feedback he's received on social media, he's been heaped with praise for his commentary in that game, and he's been very clear that he would like to see Super League involvement. The NRL has basically hinted that they want Super League involvement because the ticket sales in the UK were fantastic. So there's also been hints, should the World Club Challenge be part of it? So here's my idea, ideas for Vegas in 2026. Instead of having 4 games in one day, which was overkill and I think was a bit much for a lot of the American fans, the British, Kiwi and Aussie fans, obviously we've got magic rounds in both the Super League and the NRL, but for the US fans, that was a bit much. That was a bit much for a lot of them, and they were starting to leave the stadium by the time the Panthers and Sharks kicked off to conclude the day's play. People are saying the women should have a State of Origin game or an Aussie Kiwi international. I think it's too early in the women's season for a full-fledged, full-blooded test match or State of Origin game. State of Origin, it wouldn't work because you lose that intensity from game 1 to game 2. That should be a 4, 5, 6 week period of brutality and, interstate rivalry, which takes place in the middle of the year. And that works really well. To then fiddle with that and have one game in March and the next 2 games in June, July just doesn't work for me. I don't think it works for the women's product, and as the test match proved, the imbalance between the NRL and NRLW and the Super League was very pronounced. And one of the things that the women said was that they had a lack of time in camp together and preparation together. Both the England team and the Australian teams actually said that in interviews, that they didn't have a lot of time together to go through combinations, training sessions, and get acclimatised to the American climate was a factor. Now, the NRL's hinted they want Super League involvement, and they have hinted that the World Club Challenge could be part of their plans. So, 4 games in one day is a bit too much for the American audience. How about splitting the event over 2 days? 2 games on one day, 2 games on the other. You have the World Club Challenge, for example, hypothetically, and 1 NRL game on the Saturday, on day 1, and then the Super League game and the other NRL game on the Sunday. I think that could be quite a good way to break up the weekend and have it over 2 days, and therefore you have two days of solid action rather than a whole day, which is quite long. So you can have 2 days of more intense action rather than one long day of a lot of action, which can get quite tiring for people. And it was very obvious fans were leaving to get back to their hotels and get to the restaurants and avoid the rush out the stadium by the end of the day's play. Teams that should go, at least the Melbourne Storm should be considered, because you'll get the whole state of Victoria tuning in, because the AFL season hasn't started at this point. It's in its pre-season. It's just starting its pre-season, so you would have the whole city of Melbourne and the wider state of Victoria tuning in, because there's a team from the state of Victoria playing, and the Melbourne Storm is one of the most successful sides in the NRL. And I would take one of the Queensland sides. My pick would be the Cowboys, because the viewership on Channel 9 was down by 11%, and I think a big part of that was Brisbane went last year, they didn't go this year, no Queensland side, so I'll go with the Cowboys and the Storm as 2 teams that have to be on the ledger. And the other 2 teams, it's take your pick for those teams that haven't already gone. With the World Club Challenge aspect, and this has been raised before, that it should be part of the Vegas weekend. You're going to get 3 Super League teams instead of 2. If you want to have a Super League game as a standalone World Club Challenge, that means you have 3 Super League teams attending. And if you are going to take have an all Super League game again, the Catalan Dragons, for my opinion, have to be involved, because that rewards the French fans as well, because they came over last year in decent numbers, and that, as I say, rewards French Rugby League fans, which I think is important because they're part of the Super League, much like the Warriors went this year from New Zealand. I think that just shows that, hey, there's a country that doesn't speak English as a first language that plays rugby league to appeal to a wider global audience. And look, the Catalan Dragons, and they've got some good. They're a very talented side. The NRL's also hinted at potentially purchasing Super League, so this could be another pathway where they buy a bigger stake in the English and French games, which I think needs investment. On the side of promotion and other related activities, potentially get the squads out there a little bit earlier. I know that might be a bit trickier for the Super League sides, but get the teams out there a bit earlier might be a better idea. Get them a bit more promotion time, training time, time with fans, and things like that. The fan engagement this year was, I think, better than last year from all reports. And so that there is that aspect as well. I think the city of Vegas wants this to be more than just a 5-year plan, because estimates vary from the amount of revenue generated for the Vegas economy. We're talking anywhere between $80 and $100 million each year that we in the 2 years. So about $100 million last year and about $100 million this year, pumped into the Vegas economy in just a handful of days. And that tells you something. That's a big injection for a local economy, having $100 million in just like 3-4 days flood into a local economy like that is big. And the city of Vegas wants to be seen as more than just casinos. They've really diversified their tourism and hospitality sectors, and they want to further diversify their economy. And when you've got that much money being spent by not that many people visiting, to be fair, if you think about it, ticket sales were good, and fans that went were in good numbers. There's about 30 to 35,000 people who attended this weekend were from outside the US. That's foreign tourists. That's Aussies, that's Kiwis, and that's Brits. And so that really, and this is the UK and Australia are the two biggest nations outside of the US that visit Vegas. So there's that connection as well, and the Chamber of Commerce and the Mayor's office in Vegas wants to continue this longer as a longer term arrangement. So I think doing more promotion year-wide for 2026, I think naming the teams that are going to attend earlier, I think can also help with promoting and ticket sales for next year, because fans want to plan ahead because of cost and get tickets and hotels booked earlier, which I think is important. And I do think splitting it over 2 days rather than having 4 games in 1 day is a better idea. I mean, if you want to take the women, it would have to be the test match between Australia and New Zealand. That's the best option rather than a state of origin game, because there are those saying, it should be game 1 state of origin, that then impacts, who plays home advantage for the next 2 games or whatever. I would take a test match if you are going to take the women, but I would also allow the women to have an extra bit of time in preparation and training before going into the Vegas game, because it did show this year, and that was one of the things that the female players said, was we haven't had a lot of time together in camp to prepare for this test match. Other than that, I think the way the NRL's gone about it's been good. Could it be better? Yes. Could ticket sales be a bit better? Again, the earlier the teams get announced, the earlier you can start driving ticket sales, holiday packages. People can then plan ahead for booking flights, accommodation, and there are other activities they want to do surrounding Las Vegas. There's other attractions there. There's other things to do. It's more than just gambling and bars and restaurants. There's the great landscape around. There's the desert around. There's the mountains. There's a lot of exploration. There's a lot of history in Nevada that you could also do as a tourist. And so that would be my thoughts on how to structure the Vegas experience for 2026. There's also talk of an NRL Combine. I think that's a very, very good idea. And so we'll have to see what Peter V'landys, Andrew Abdo, and then of course the RFL will also come up with as an industry group think tank. But I do think having the Super League involvement was good. I think the potential of the World Club Challenge is also a really good thing, because then you're taking 3 Super League sides and 5 NRL sides as well. So there's that debate. Should it be the World Club Challenge be played there, or should a women's test match be played there as the 4th game, if you were going to stick with a 4-game plan? But that's enough of me rambling. That's my ideas on what should happen next year, with some of the other ideas that I've seen floated around in discussions I've seen floated around. Andrew Voss, for example, is very, very keen that the Super League remain involved in the Vegas weekend going forward, which says to me there's a lot of strong hints that the NRL is going to purchase a stake or outright purchase Super League at some point, because the game chronically needs investment in the UK and France. It really does. The quality level is imbalanced, and when it comes to the women's game, it's even more imbalanced than in 2017. The gulf has grown, especially since the World Cup. It's very clear and very obvious that the NRLW is shot ahead in quality and fitness and professionalism, where the Women's Super League is... Look, they play their best. They're not unskilled. They're very committed to what they do, but they're part-timers. These are girls who are full-time students or in full-time jobs, and they have to, play their careers around their work commitments or studying commitments, whereas in the NRLW, a lot of them are full-time. They're not all full-time, but a lot of them are. So there's a golfing class, there's a golfing quality, pay as well. And the RFL needs to learn some lessons there. But that's enough from me. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on what the NRL can do in Las Vegas in 2026. But from me for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.